This is a special edition of the Three Man Week College Basketball Best Bets Show presented by BetRivers, all made possible by the Field of 68. I definitely butcher that intro, Kai, because there's just a lot going on in my mind right now. I'm just a very humbled, very fortunate man. I'll address my own
Yes.
accomplishments. But first, shouts to Martin Luther King. A great ode to him in this lovely, glorious day and all that he did for our fine nation. There was some basketball yesterday, Jim. I don't really care about what happened yesterday all that much, but you can tell the folks out there what transpired, I guess.
I want you like this the whole show. I like that casual arm up. That's good. That's good point. Yeah,
My
perfect.
feet are my feet are above my hips right now, just for context. I assume people assume that with my seat, but yeah, they're
Yeah.
very elevated right now.
Matt is in celebration mode right now, and I'll let him say why. I noticed UConn being bad yesterday. 21 turnovers at home against St. John's, double-digit loss at home to St. John's. It seems like the guards are kind of catching up to them a little bit. They got a lot of quantity this offseason in the portal, and it seems like, okay, we'll throw enough at the wall and something will stick. But turns out Diarra, Aline, Calcaterra, Newton, they're not really top five in the
Mhm.
country guards. And that's showing up. Hawkins and Jackson can only cover for so much, Kai. It seems like UConn is fading back to the pack a little bit here.
Unfortunately, Jim, and yes, I point the finger at Dan Hurley a little bit. I think you have to. He's got a lot of talent still, a lot of talent. I still think they're pretty good, but gosh, that loss to St. John's is tough. Hard to really defend them on that one. Yeah, I mean, my takeaways Xavier Marquette game was awesome. Two great teams. I think both are incredible. They're both ahead of UConn in the Big East standings. I also want to set Matt up for his takeaway because come on, man, we got to get on the airways. What's the takeaway, Matthew? Tell us. Tell us.
I got engaged, which is the
Hey,
Oh
precursor
boy.
to getting married. Thank you.
Mazel
Uh,
tov, Mazel tov.
Opa.
People thought people think I'm cheating on the game of basketball that I love because I am
Yes.
married to the game, but I'm also married to the new game. So playing both sides are very excited. Thank you all for your warm wishes and congratulations. Um, let's get to it, shall we? Kai, I'm going to you here first for
Yeah,
our kickoff on the outline. Yeah, I didn't watch much basketball yesterday, so I have no actual takeaways or learnings.
yeah, yeah.
Um, but it's time for Big Ten country as I lounge in my nice sofa here. Michigan State hosting Purdue. Big question here is Malik Hall's availability since he's been
Mhm.
back and in the mix. All the while, Tyson Walker and AJ Hoger are playing like all conference caliber studs in the backcourt. Is Sparty a legit threat to win this conference? And can they take down the
Mm.
Boilers giving 3.5 and a vintage home dog spot tonight?
You need to know Malik Hall's status. If he's out, it's a stay away for me or it's a Purdue lean. If he's in, it's Michigan State. At four, I like it way better at four. 3.5, I'd still probably take them with Malik Hall in the lineup. They did blow the lead to Illinois without Malik Hall. I mean, he's vital. They're very good with him in. We've talked about it before. Without him, I think it's tough to stop Purdue. Now, they are one of the best defensive rebounding teams in the country. Sparty, excuse me, they are the best defensive rebounding team in the Big Ten. But to combat Purdue's offensive board prowess is a different story. No one's stopping Zach Edey. They're the number one offense in the country right now. He's a big reason why, but they also have shooters that are everywhere. I'm just not sure Michigan State can defend all of that without Hall. And Sparty's offense can get stuck in the mud. It's going to take a big effort from Walker, competency from Hogard. We get that some games and some games we don't. And a lot of Joey Hauser shooting, scoring off curls, scoring off cuts. It's not super reliable. So, Jim, if Malik Hall is out, I'm leaning towards Purdue. If he's in, I would maybe take a swing on Michigan State.
Yep, I think he's that big to the handicap. He's like legitimately a difference maker. You can space the floor a lot better against Edey, spread him out, force him to defend in space with Hall out there. If not, then you got a lot of Sissoko, a lot of Cooper, Jackson Kohler. You always have that one paint bound big, and that's kind of frustrating. You know that Edey's going to be able to score against almost anyone, especially anybody but Sissoko.
Mhm.
The kind of ultimate equalizer is that Painter and Izzo are so familiar with each other. They played like 40 games against each other in league play. I tried to look at the splits. Purdue's 6-3-1 against the spread in the last 10. Does that matter? I don't know. It's only a 10-game sample. You go back to 20 and it's essentially a coin flip. So I don't want to read too much into that. It does sort of compel me towards taking the points, Matt, with such familiarity between the two. But that really hinges on Hall. If he's not there, they just don't have enough weapons. And I would probably start to tilt towards the Boilers.
I kind of like Sparty in the home dog spot. I looked at the concerns basically nudged me away. I mean, Edey dominated this game last year. I remember vividly. I think he had 25
Mhm.
points. 22 minutes. So I mean, like it was a vintage Edey domination in condensed time. Now we know he's getting that full workload this year. I assume Izzo will adjust, but does he have the horses up front to adjust? Also, just look at Purdue last game, like pretty impressive performance. I guess you have to, normalize for the fact that there's no Sam Griesel or Juwan Gary for Nebraska, but just to see Purdue look so dominant with Edie being not a decoy, but like not as his dominant self. I think it was a good game for these Purdue, these younger guards who have been good all year, but been inconsistent in some spots. I think to give them some momentum, some confidence that this team isn't so Edie reliant. Yeah, Purdue's a tough nut to crack. I think we all agree that they're probably a little bit overrated, but are they? I don't think they're like a hard sell though at this point. I'm not going to go that far. But yeah, whole status is huge there. All right, staying in Big Ten country, Jimbo. Actually, I'm going to Kai because Kai is the OG Minnesota Gopher Goliath. Although I've been, I think, the biggest Gopher fan on this program, and I've been, I don't know, partially correct recently because the Gophers are playing much more competitively. They're actually scoring points, Kai. Imagine what a healthy Jamison Battle does for that team.
Yeah.
But Illinois, they seem back. So what gives in this matchup? The current spread, I think, is 9. So kind of a big spot for a home dog here in the Big Ten.
It is. Illinois is rolling. 3 straight wins, 3 straight covers. Do we caveat those at all, though? No Tyler Wall against Wisconsin, Nebraska, and then Malik Hall gets hurt after they were down in the second half.
Yeah, close.
I'd say it's still a good sign for Illini fans. They've clearly found some chemistry, I guess. I'm not going to say it's because of Sky Clark, but perhaps internally they finally took Brad Underwood's messaging, his tough love, and it's showing up on the court now. Minnesota's been competent too. They have 3 straight covers of their own, and I watched that whole Ohio State game. I was impressed with Ben Johnson's game plan. It was basically we're slowing every possession down to a crawl, and no doubt it's going to be the same thing here. He wants to minimize possessions in this game. In that sense, Jim, the spread feels a little bit big. I don't think the barn is a huge home court advantage anymore, but considering this game could be low possession, Minnesota can control the pace. They can probably stick within double digits here. Illinois has the better matchups. It might be tough to play Dane Danger. Dawson Garcia can definitely take him into space, but on the other end, he's crushing Minnesota on the glass in the post. We'll see what Underwood does with him, but I kind of
dancing bear.
Minnesota. I'm staying away.
The dancing bear.
Yeah, dancing bear, Mr. Danger. I like Minnesota. I just think it's a few too many points at home, and they are much better than they were earlier in the year. Their freshmen, Payne, Ola Joseph, Carrington, they're all improving. And then, the healthy battle factor is major. The fact that they have a competent offense now, can actually score with people and be efficient in the half court, that's massive. It just feels a little too high to me. I don't think Illinois is completely fixed. I do think they've benefited from circumstances, the way Kai mentioned, with availability on the other side. They were dead even with Michigan State as 7-point favorites until Hall went out. The air left the balloon there, and they had hit a couple shots late. Michigan State made no threes in that game. I know that their plan was to extend and take away the 3-point line, but 0 threes and you barely cover. I don't think Illinois is like this perfect team going forward. So Matt, I definitely lean towards Minnesota here in the home dog spot.
Hardly Minnesota. Didn't bet it because I'm still a stubborn Illini backer, and I think there's a little bit of runway for them to get back to that elite level we saw them earlier. But just look at Minnesota this year compared to last year. They're probably, I'd say they are more talented this year, although they're younger this season. So you kind of have to, those kind of, net each other out. Last year, Minnesota had that awesome run to start non-con and really kind of faded the conference. This year, I think it's just a flip script with the injuries they had, the youth they've had. So there's definitely some value here for the next, couple weeks with the Gophers. I keep choosing the wrong spots to back them or not back them. I didn't play them last game because Zach Key was going to play for Ohio State, and it turns out, in the sense of winning there at Ohio State. So
one more number here, Matt. Minnesota is leading the Big Ten in defensive 3-point attempt rate, so they're taking away threes the best, and opponents are making 44% of their threes that they're actually getting. So I think there's going to be some regression there where Minnesota opponents aren't going to shoot 45% from deep.
Yep. Agreed, Jimbo. All right, we're going to ACC country, Kai, down to Coral Gables, where Miami Florida is hosting Syracuse. I faded Miami last game, annoyingly. They were, I think, 13 of 18 from 3, and Boston College had every right to be in that game. But it was a reminder, Kai, that this Miami team is an all-the-way awesome elite shot-making team. I tend to think they're a little bit overrated in general, but I think their shot makers and shooting is as good as advertised. So I guess my takeaway is tread lightly when fading the Canes, Kai, although I do think the spread's a little high at 7.
Yeah, after that game, they lost to NC State, right? NC State got them in overtime.
That's right. There was 2 games ago.
Impressive win for the Wolfpack. Yeah. I had in my head that Miami was a good zone team. they're just average this year. They don't really have a ton of willing outside shooting. We know Wong, Pack, and Miller are capable, but it's not their number one option. And they are a solid offensive rebounding team, but the numbers don't pop out at you. I think Omier does get second chances for them, but I expect them to be a little bit more dominant in my head. So that advantage kind of goes out of the window there for me. Syracuse also quietly 5-2 in the ACC, somehow not totally dead from an at-large or a conference perspective. There is talent here. They have a couple wild cards with Girard, and their freshman Chris Bell's been excellent. They can get hot. 7 points, I kind of lean towards Syracuse actually, but I got nothing strong here. Certainly not in the business of fading the Canes at home, Jim.
Yeah, the number is what's keeping me off Miami. I thought this would be a hair lower, especially coming off the loss. Maybe Miami's a little overvalued. I'm going to stubbornly say they're an awesome zone team, Kai, despite the numbers.
Yeah.
Just like Jordan Miller feels like the perfect stick him at the free throw line, let him be the playmaker, either hit a floater or dish out to shooters. And then Omir's going to be a monster on the glass, just like a headache with his effort level. If you're not going to get a body on him, he will find rebounds. And then the shooting, like Nigel Pack could hit 4 threes in 5 minutes, and suddenly you're just like, why are we zoning this team? So yeah, I would lean towards Miami in the matchup. Number felt a little too high for me to lay it. So I ended up staying away, Matthew.
Yeah, I guess I could see why Miami would be relatively worse against zone, and maybe just because they're so awesome against man-to-man, and their pick-and-roll offense is just impossible to guard. And against the zone, it's a little bit negated. It's like Wong and Pack are just shooters and not like shot makers, creators. It kind of lessens their value. Just a hypothesis. I have no idea. It makes no sense to me either. We're heading to DC for our final game before we get to chat out round one. George versus George. That's George Mason versus George Washington. Mason's been subtly improving. And I think it's a team that we thought would be solid preseason, at least I did. And they have the talent to do so. Thought they should have won that game at SLU, which would give them 3 wins. And obviously losing at St. Bonnie's, Kai, is nothing to be embarrassed about. No one wins in Olean this season. All that is to say, I like Mason here today, even though it's a big number against their crosstown rival.
Yeah, the Battle of George, Matt. I'm going to disagree with you on the take here, but that's okay. Well, George Mason, first of all, I do want to say, at home, they've been awesome. They're 10-0 straight up. They're 7-3 against the spread, +4 cover margin. Why? I honestly have no idea. But in this game, there is not a lot of home court here. This game, George Washington's 20 miles away from George Mason. There's little home. Historically, these games have been really close, too, between Washington and Mason. It's always within 7 or 8 points. Washington's won quite a bit of them. Mason's won quite a bit of them. And George Washington's been putting a lot of solid efforts forward lately. They've been inconsistent, but they're capable of competing. They have the number 1 offense right now in the A10. They have stars and Bishop and Adams, and Hunter Dean's a really solid post. Good matchup for Joshua Duro. And without ticket gains in the lineup, George Mason's 1-3 against the spread, albeit very, very close. The margins have been razor thin, but I think he matters. It appears to be catching up with him maybe a little bit. And I think 8 points is just a ton. Given these games are close, given the travel's nothing here, George Washington's my best bet at +8.
Yeah, no gains too. I think the talent level is actually relatively close. They've got George Washington has a lot of down transfers that actually could play up against a nearby rival. I think that matters. Caputo's done a really nice job. They're 4th in the country in 2-point percentage. And George Mason's actually been vulnerable inside an A10 play. It hasn't been this like super stout rim defense with Ojiako and Oduro, which is what I would have expected, but the numbers aren't telling that story. I actually was leaning towards the under for a little bit, and then I looked at both defenses and I forgot how bad George Washington is on that end and how efficient they've been offensively. I think I just don't have that properly accounted for in my numbers, Matt, so I did not bet it, stayed away. I could see this one getting kind of high scoring.
Yeah, no take on the total. I remember last year the Mason blew that game against Washington without Oduro, and then got their revenge in the ladder. So I was kind of looking at that maybe as a potential revenge spot, but I think it's negated by the fact that they, the rematch was flip-flop there. So I think Kai probably has the right side there. As I think more about it, my initial lean was maybe awful.
He knocks on wood.
He knocks on wood. Jimbo, shout him out. Round 1. That's my knock for you, Kai.
Thanks. All right, Matt, going right back to you for the other George. You are the owner of King George, the pup. We got Georgetown. Georgetown, a 14-point underdog at Villanova. What do you got for us here?
It's too high, right? This is Georgetown. You forget about them. You write them off as awful, and then they do one of these weird, they compete for 35 minutes, give Nova a scare, ultimately lose, but they do probably get you a cover. And your fade a Nova team that I think we're learning is kind of in between the Nova we thought to start, and the Nova we saw about 2 weeks ago, kind of somewhere in the middle.
Is Brandon Murray back?
I know I should care about that, but injuries don't matter. I think I'm going to kind of hammer that home.
Last game between these two was tied at halftime, and then Nova won the second half by 16. So maybe if you're looking dog, they stand up for a half before they crumble. That might be worth looking at. Kai in the horizon. Purdue-Fort Wayne is laying 5.5 at home to Cleveland State, who has been just immensely more competent than we thought this year. I think they play up as a decent underdog in my head. They just blew out IUPUI. Do they compete again in the Hoosier State?
I lean their way at 5.5. Yep. I think they can compete. Haven't been blown away by Purdue-Fort Wayne at all. So, yeah, lean their way at 5.5.
I believe somebody missed last game for Morton Robinson. He's like a sixth man for Purdue-Fort Wayne. Not a giant.
Replaceable. I agree.
Matty Akers in the chat asking you, and not specifically you, but you're getting the question. Montana State is laying 8.5 at Idaho. The Vandals kind of were the bane of our existence for a couple weeks earlier this season. They've tailed off, but is this too many?
I actually kind of want to lay it with Montana State, which feels insane given how good Idaho was for that stretch. And they were largely good because of Isaac Jones, who's just been like a revelation, dominant big guy up front, completely lifts the ceiling of that team. But I think there's a scouting report out on him, and there is for sure guys up front for Montana State to guard him. If you take him away for Idaho, they don't really have any other places to turn. So I think the Bobcats in like a Virginia-esque road crockpot type of performance.
Yeah. Montana State's got those two British big boys, Bello and Osobor.
Bello and Osobor.
Kai, we discussed this one very briefly pre-show, but UTEP is getting 7 points at Charlotte. Super low total here, like 122. You and me both like the dog.
We do, and we're anti-market, Jim. It's up to 8 at BetRivers. I get it. Charlotte's been really, really good, much better than people expected. They cracked the top 100 recently in KenPom as well. And UTEP, they have one of the worst offenses in the country. It's dead last in Conference USA. It's like 320th in the country. However, I think they can hang within 8. Their defense is really, really good. Should be a pretty ugly game.
All right, Matt, back to you for an A-10 battle, which it's not the bottom teams in the league right now because Loyola Chicago has emphatically laid that claim. But St. Joe's at LaSalle, the Explorers, a 1.5 point favorite at home here. What do you think?
Money's come in here on LaSalle, surprisingly. I actually like Joe's, even more surprisingly for a guy who's been making fun of that team and I guess consequently that coach for the last year. But I do think they actually win this game today. They're a little healthier now. I know Greer's been playing better lately. So, Kai, you're a big Greer guy preseason. I've seen some things from him lately. I think Joe's is actually competent. I'll say it. I like them today.
When they make shots, they have the highest three-point attempt rate in the A-10, but they have to make shots.
From Adam, he asked if Cornell can run away from Columbia here. I will take this one. It's a 12.5 point spread, and you're like, okay, Cornell, they're going to slaughter everybody. But this is a stat from John Fendler on Twitter. Ivy double-digit dogs over the last decade are 61 and 35 against the spread. Like, it's just really hard for any of these teams to consistently get blown out. I'd imagine some of those ATS losses are Columbia because they've been the dregs of the league for a little while now. But I just have a hard time with Cornell coming off that monster comeback emotional win. Laying double digits on the road in this league feels dicey to me. I would lean towards Columbia.
Coaches are too good. Familiarity is too high. I agree. I like Columbia here. I don't love it because Cornell's my baby, but I like Columbia.
Yep. I think there's going to be a lot of points in that one. I like over again. After Kai's easy best bet with Cornell over the last game.
It was nice.
Yeah. All right, Kai, last one before we go back to the outline. From the SWAC, surprisingly, Aaron Marshall, Pine Bluff on the road at Bethune-Cookman, peanut butter, as we affectionately call Pine Bluff. Bethune-Cookman, a 1.5 point favorite. I think they've been sneakily one of the more disappointing teams in the country, given the talent level. What do you got on this one?
I lean Pine Bluff, and that's because Bethune-Cookman's had guys out, and I have no idea who's in or out for this team because they're not covered very well. Derek Carter-Hollinger was one of them. And one more guy that I forgot about. I just kind of said no thanks to this game. Can't trust no injuries.
Yeah, I think there's sneakily a lot of good coaches in the SWAC, and Reggie Theus is not one of them. That's kind of a problem.
Yeah, this year is an indictment for sure. I thought he was, but this year's been bad.
Yeah,
no question.
All right, Matt, back to the outline. We got a few more that we'll hit in the second portion of Chat Mob.
Going to Conference USA. I'm going to talk about a team that has been very disappointing lately. Jim, UAB on the road to Murfreesboro. They travel to Middle Tennessee. A team that's been a little bit erratic, but generally more consistent, and in general, a team I just trust more. Money's coming on UAB, pushed it up from -1.5 to -3. I am now leaning, although not officially, taking the short home dog in the Blue Raiders. Your thoughts?
Yeah, money is basically saying that Jelly Walker's going to play. I think that's the indication after he sat out last game, was seen in a boot. They still took care of business at Louisiana Tech rather impressively there, but I think Middle Tennessee's better than La Tech. So at current number, if Walker sits, I would take Middle Tennessee. If he's out, then it's a stay away from me, Kai. I don't know. UAB actually has some juice beyond Walker. Like Gaines showed why he was a near all SEC player last game. Like,
Yeah.
okay, that's that guy in the CUSA is kind of a cheat code. But I do think Middle Tennessee is going to be feisty if Walker's not in the lineup.
Yeah, they covered and beat Louisiana Tech without him. They were down in the second half, but it was Eric Gaines. He stepped up. He's super talented. Their primary ball handling depth, though, is thin after Walker. They don't need it, right? Because he plays most of the game. Having Ladarius Brewer back definitely helps. But yeah, without Jelly Walker, it's hard to really emphatically trust UAB. But Middle Tennessee, who knows what you're going to get with this team? They lost to UTSA this season. They've competed with good teams. I just don't know what they do. They don't zone a ton, but they will extend pressure. If there's no Walker, maybe that bothers UAB a bit. The line to me still feels a bit short. I can't trust Middle Tennessee, and UAB is still really talented without Walker, so I'd still lean UAB.
Big motivational angle here for Middle Tennessee. Lost in 3 overtimes in the Conference USA tournament last season. Just a crazy game. And this Middle Tennessee team is one that I think plays in relation to their effort level. Like, I think they thrive off how hard they play. So if they're like in a letdown spot, I'm less likely to back them. If they're like in a really hype spot, like they play really well. And this definitely qualifies given what happened last year, especially with the money coming out. I might take Middle Tennessee now that I talk myself through it. Good workshop session, boys. All right, next game. UC Irvine, UC Santa Barbara. Jim, going out west. We told ourselves, I think you actually coined this last year, I will always never, that's contradictory. I will always bet UC Irvine when they play UC Santa Barbara, or I will never bet UC Santa Barbara when they play UC Irvine. Does that still hold for you, that creed, Jim?
Not as strongly. UCSB, that might have been like 2 years ago in the pandemic year, and then Santa Barbara ended up winning. They won a tournament game. Yeah. Like they actually kind of unseated Irvine as the big powerhouse. And this is a weirdly different Irvine team. It's not this like dominant interior defense. It's more shot making, which is like really, really shocking to see from a Russell Turner team. I just think Santa Barbara's better. They're more physical inside now, especially Kai with the injuries that Irvine has been looped in. Their main big man has been out. I don't know if shot making is enough to make up for it against a team that can kind of match their talent level or even exceed.
I'm a Babs man. Yes, Licton is out again for Irvine. They got away with it without against Fullerton. They didn't cover. They got away with it. They got away with it against Northridge. This is a different beast. Santa Barbara's front court is awesome. Andre Kelly and Miles Norris, it's the best front court in the league. Without Licton in the middle to prevent paint scoring, it's going to be really difficult for them to stop. Also, by the way, Santa Barbara still has the best player in the league in AJ Mitchell. Having said that, Irvine has been the better team this year. Babs has some weird chemistry stuff, maybe. I don't know why they're not better. It's kind of a weird team this season. I still think they can compete here. I still think they can win. And they just have too much talent without Licton in the middle. So I'm going Babs.
I think, yeah, Babs is the more talented team. I agree with that. The coaching mismatch for me. I don't think that Pashnak's a bad coach, but I still trust Irvine more in the spot. And again, I'll cite the exact same anecdote that I mentioned from UA Middle Tennessee. Some revenge here as Barbara took down Irvine last year in the Big West tournament. These two teams are pretty familiar with each other. There's no love lost at all. So I think the number favors UCSB, but I do lean Irvine with my gut. And we continue heading back east, Kai, to Ivy Country. The Palestra Penn hosting Princeton. Spread hovering around to pick all day, which I think is an apt spread. These teams feel like near equals. Penn trying to get back into the leaderboard contention for the Ivy tourney. What say you on this matchup?
Penn hasn't beaten Princeton since 2018. That's a wild stat. I can't believe that. That goes against really my what I thought before looking that up. This Penn team has been maddening. They have the talent to win the Ivy. They have arguably the best player in Dingle. Maybe it's Towson on the other side. But their defense has been an issue, as has their ball handling. They have the worst turnover rate in the Ivy, which is shocking with their guard play. But Princeton won't really take advantage of that. They don't turn teams over. That's not really their MO. They will likely score on Penn. It's going to be kind of a turnstile. My hope is that Penn being at home, this is their home opener for their Ivy schedule. kind of gives them an extra boost.
Yeah.
They've competed in games and just kind of let them go. Should have beaten Dartmouth, blew that game. Should have beaten Cornell, blew that game. I say should have beaten Cornell. Cornell took care of them pretty quickly after they took the lead. But I lean towards the red and blue here, Jim. I don't feel great about it, but that's the way I lean.
Yeah, it's the year of reversing trends in the Ivy, right? It wasn't Donahue owned Cornell, and then suddenly he didn't own Cornell. So he's had troubles with Princeton. Maybe suddenly he won't. I do think Penn has better bodies to guard Towson. In the past, they've been really, really depleted up front. Now they've got Martz, Spinoso, Orkelboyd. All these guys are actually healthy. Lucas Monroe, probably a decent body for him too. So I lean Penn. I just think they're a little bit better, even-ish, maybe again, a little bit better. You don't give a ton for home in these Ivy games, especially a weird one on a Monday like this. But I still like the Quakers, Matt. I stubbornly think they're the best team in this conference. Cornell's probably past them, but
no, I'm with you though. I wrote this down like in my notes weeks ago. I fundamentally believe Penn is the best team in this conference, at least should be. I think they have the most talent top to bottom. They have a coach I really like, and they played to a lower level in the non-conference because I thought the schedule, on top of the injuries they had, just kind of like made their results erratic. But we haven't seen like that boost through conference play at all. I mean, losing at Dartmouth is nothing to be proud of. So I'm questioning my initial Penn priors. All that is to say, I stayed away, but my gut still leans toward the red and blue there. Lastly, another fun Colonial showdown, although it's lost a little bit its luster because the Towson Tigers are not this pseudo juggernaut that some thought coming into this season after their stellar year last season. They're 3-2 in the league, and they're playing a Hofstra team that is, I mean, quite frankly, en fuego, coming off a 24-point beatdown of Delaware when they have Aaron Estrada back high. Shockingly, he matters quite a bit. So what's your take on this game?
Towson took a little money. I leaned their way initially, but this Hofstra team has been much better. Holden's back for Towson, but man, they disappointed this year. Perhaps Jason Gibson being out is a big reason, but still, they're too talented and too experienced to be this inconsistent. I think they can win here. I think they can cover, but who stops Estrada? Towson's athletic, but I'm not sure they can. Hofstra's offense is really hard to stop. It's the best in the Colonial. Their guards get in the lane at will, seemingly. I think Towson can get some shots off. Hofstra plays more packed in on defense. Tigers have the number 1 3-point percentage in CAA play, but I stayed away here ultimately. Number doesn't really like anything at the current price.
It's up to 2.5, Jim. Towson laying 2.5 at home.
Yeah, I don't want to lay it with them. No Gibson. And I think losing Terry Nolan definitely has hurt them too. They don't have like that athletic point guard to get into the lane. They tried to move Holden over to point guard, and that takes away like your big slashing wing. He was an awesome offensive rebounder. Can't do that as much when he's on the ball. Just the roster shift hasn't worked well, especially with Gibson out, who's one of their best shooters. Could have played some point guard, and unfortunately he's missed like 15 straight games. Hofstra seems like they're rolling, Matt. I think they can put Charles Thompson in space with ball screens. Hofstra's one of the best ball screen offenses in the country. I would probably lean towards the Pride here. I didn't bet it. Towson's just been kind of frustrating.
Yes,
I agree. I kind of lean toward the Pride, and the more I think about this, like I just think this Towson team is fundamentally different without Terry Nolan. We talked about that early on. I think it's kind of borne out. When you watch them, they look limited. They don't look as explosive or as dangerous on offense as they did last season. And part of that is the loss with Gibson out of the lineup. I mean, that's just a sharpshooter that they need to. So kind of got some of two of the most important pieces on that end. And that concludes our outline today, Jimbo. It's round 2 for Mobbery.
I don't know who to go to with this one, guys. We'll start with Merrimack. They've had, I think, every game but one this season has gone under the total. Kyle, I'll go to you. Wow. Do you see it being another under here? Their zone I believe Jordan Majeski coined it the concrete mixer. It just slows the game to a halt.
It does, and Wagner is not an offensive juggernaut, and neither is Merrimack. They play super slow as well. The total was 116.5 at BetRivers. That's pretty darn low. I wouldn't take the over. I wouldn't try to time something like this. I'd probably stay away. Or just keep riding the trend until it loses. I don't know.
Yeah,
that's probably
Merrimack's offense is horrific.
Yeah.
Literally dead last in the country. Actual quality defense. Yeah. No thanks. Matt, you don't have your bows up behind you as a pennant, but they are laying 16 to Cal State Northridge. CSUN, typically a darling of the weave, but they've been maddeningly bad this year. Is this too many points, though?
No, it's not, because CSUN finds himself in that similar tough, less than 48-hour turnaround that who did Hawaii just beat over the weekend? Long Beach. Yeah.
Long Beach.
So Northridge just played on the mainland on Saturday. Now they go to the island less than 48 hours. It's not normal in the scheduling in this conference. I think it really hurt Long Beach, and I think it absolutely hurts Northridge, who just doesn't have the same gusto as Beach does, even though Beach was injured.
I have no idea how Northridge scores. Like, Hawaii's a really good
This game should be
team.
ugly. Like, if they get to 50, I'll be shocked. Yeah.
It feels undery for me. All right, Kai, Charleston, ranked team, nation's longest winning streak, 16.5-point favorites against seemingly a more competent William and Mary squad. Are you going to lay it with the Cougars?
William and Mary just beat Wilmington. Shocking. I ordinarily I would lay this to Charleston. I think they can take care of business, but William and Mary's proven they've been competent lately. So I'm staying away at 16.5. It's a bit high.
Yeah. I bet on every William and Mary game between the Richmond outright win and last game. Every game I bet on them basically. So kind of frustrating.
You missed a couple of big efforts there. That's too bad. All right, Matt, North Texas road favorite at FIU down to 8.5. The home Panthers have taken a little bit of money. FIU not playing as insanely paced last like 5 or so games. Does that help them here? Like the capability of actually playing in the half court, does it make them compete?
Yeah, and it's nice going against North Texas because you're going to have to. North Texas give you any option. But I think FIU Ballard's made some good changes. Like they really were not in full form in non-conference. They played a lot better, very competitive against Florida. I mean, they probably should have beat their crosstown rival, quote unquote. And then Western Kentucky just kind of a tough spot. Now they're back home on a short-ish turnaround while North Texas just makes the short 40-minute drive. So I don't know. A lot of conflicting parts of this handicap. I ultimately stayed away.
I like that the spread is lowered. Last game, Tyler Perry kind of went nuts from deep, though. That was the reason they covered. He just hit enough really, really tough shots. So I'll probably sit that out. Kai, a couple questions about this game. Harry R, especially Delaware at Northeastern. Northeastern laying 2. Delaware's taken some money despite the injury question mark of Jameer Nelson Jr. I wrote Delaware up for Action Network. I think the Blue Hens are the side. What about you?
Yeah, part of that money's me, Jim. Of course. Yeah, I took Delaware. I don't care if Nelson's out. They can still beat them. Northeastern's terrible. Delaware has plenty of talent without Nelson. So I like the Hens. Frankly, I'm shocked they're a dog.
I am too.
Delaware has covered 2 of 3 without Nelson. Northeastern has started 10 different guys, 4 more games. They play the most bench minutes in the country. Cohen has no idea who's good on that team. They're just throwing at the wall, and they haven't beaten anybody good in CAA play. I can't believe they're favored either. All right. I'll take this one from Ethan W. because it's an under question. Montana at Eastern Washington, total of 143.5. I do like the under. They had only 71 possessions last game. Hopefully it's a little slower. It was 87-80, so big time shootout. Both teams are better offensively than defensively. I think the difference will hopefully be Mac Anderson playing more for Montana. He fouled out in 8 minutes last time these two played. I think he'll be out there for 20. Best defensive rebounder, best rim protector. That helps the under. Matt, back to the CAA for you. The other team down in the South Beach area, Florida Atlantic, at large contender. They're at Western Kentucky. Is this the spot where the talent plays up for the Hilltoppers as a dog?
Yes, and I'm going to be so mad because it's the one year I'm bailing on Western Kentucky, and it's the one year I love FAU, and I don't want them to lose and have their at-large hopes hang in the balance because of the stupid Hilltops underachieving team. But I think this is the game Western Kentucky wins. +5, short home dog, vintage spot. You get a good price. No ACOT. I don't know. At this point, who matters for that team? They've had plenty of talent. No one player matters, apparently. This is a spot they rise up. I think they play well. They get a win today, unfortunately.
Wow. Sprinkle it, baby. Sprinkle it.
Yeah. They did the same thing to UAB. It's just like this is when they play up, even though Stansbury's still not back on the sideline due to his health issues. All right, Kai, last one. I believe from the chat mob, Dartmouth at Harvard in the Ivy League. Harvard is a 10-point favorite at home against the big
double-digit dog. Again,
double-digit Ivy dog, yep.
Yeah, and Dartmouth has proven it's actually kind of competent. So I would lean towards Dartmouth at +10. Hey, fellas, can we hit the like button for Matt's engagement? Come on, hit the like button.
For the
There's
show,
a lot of people watching the show. Hit the like button.
For the show,
yeah, I lean towards Dartmouth.
Harvard, not a good big favorite either. I like that a lot more as an underdog, similar to
can't make free throws. Yes, agree. Hard
they
agree.
Cannot make free throws. Well said.
All right, that is it. Let's get to best bets. I'll lead it off here. I'm going with Elon, UNC Wilmington under 136. This one is more gut than some of my other under bets on the show, so forewarning on that. But they did just play, both played 48 hours ago. Wilmington's off 2 losses. I think their defense just strangles a terrible Elon offense. The first game between these two only had 67 possessions. That'd be great. Unfortunately, they scored 147 points. Very efficient. I don't see that happening again. Like I said, I think the Wilmington defense is locked in following the back-to-back losses, and Elon really, really struggles to score. All right, Matthew, to you.
What can Brown do for you? I hope that they can cover for you and I. That's who I am taking, Mr. McKeon. The Brown Bears, not quite a double-digit dog in the vein of our double-digit Ivy dog trend, but they are catching 8.5. There's been some money that's knocked it down, so some sharps tend to agree with me. Not that I really care, but I just think this is a way too high of a number. I know Yale is in sort of that maybe get right spot, that angry spot, but they've been in that spot a couple times and they haven't played well. So I just don't think this Yale team is as good as we saw in the non-con, and I don't think they have the ability at minimum to put teams away convincingly. Like I think they can come out with an awesome first half, but Brown's got the horses to make a little bit of a comeback and keep this competitively. So this one should be close to 8.5. Taking Brown.
Before I say mine, Brandon Murray is starting for Georgetown. So if you're a Georgetown backer,
Good news
want
for
to get in on
backers.
Want to get on the action, that's probably a good thing for you.
First half, like we said, maybe.
Yeah, first half perhaps. My best bet reminder is George Washington +8. I think they can keep it close against their crosstown rival, we'll say, George Mason.
Beautiful. Hey, we got up to 65 likes. Rock on.
All right.
Good.
That's all because of Matt. Way to go,
Good
Matt.
plug, Kai. Good plug. And also because of me. I will try and drum up more life milestone moments to skis out some more likes, but we'll take them organically provided from you guys and come back and join us tomorrow at our usual time. Not this time. That'll be noon Central, 1 Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. Until that time, good luck on your wagers and let's